I'd like to talk with you today about GAS, Guitar Acquisition Syndrome. Some people consider it to be a blight on the community at large, but I always go back to the old adage, teach a man to fish and he will never be hungry. Teach a man to play the guitar and he'll be one step from bankruptcy the rest of his life.
Guitar Stuff with John.
Welcome to another Guitar Stuff with John. John would be me. Been away for a while because been on the road. Had some losses in the family. Had a lot of traveling to do. Been a lot going on. But this is our comeback video, as it were. And you can be expecting to see a Monday release now for quite a while. And I'm shooting about 400 videos today. This video is going to be fun. So, I want to talk to you about the importance of solo one-bench luthiers, okay? When I say that, I'm going to explain these things, because I get a lot of comments on the channel where people don't seem to understand the terminology I use to describe builders and describe guitars, and etc., etc. So I want to be very concise about this. When I say a solo luthier single bench builder, I'm talking about a guy, one guy, right, in a shop that he owns on his property, where he builds anywhere from 5 to 20 instruments a year, okay? As opposed to production guitars, which is any company that makes more than 5,000 guitars a year. And there's lots of those companies. But the importance of the solo builder is immeasurable. Number one, because they give us an option to spend a lot of money on a guitar that's not the run-of-the-mill Martin Gibson Taylor Bourgeois Callings blah 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 blah. Like it's another choice we have to buy a unique instrument, and also the ability to, when you're dealing with somebody who only builds 20 or less guitars a year, you're more liable to be able to speak to the builder in person on the phone or go see them, and they'll build you a custom instrument because it's just them, right? You're an order, and it could be a custom order. You could get anything you want built. And so that's important, very important. And then besides that, most of these guys who are doing this, man, they are uber talented. You don't find a lot of guys who are just building guitars for the sake of building guitars and people are buying them and they're crap. You just don't get to that level of luthierism, of luthier, without knowing what you're doing, because it takes a lot of investment, tools, time, sweat, blood, tears, all of those things to build great guitars that artists are going to want to play, not just the everyday average guitar picker that wants to have a great guitar, and there's millions of them, but a performing touring artist will look at the guitar and go, man, I want that on stage. That's what I want to play, right? It's important. These guys are very important. So I want to talk about my connection with that world, which has all been brought about by YouTube. And I can't thank you guys enough, and YouTube as a platform, for creating a world where we can all not only encounter these builders, but I can get to show them to you. I can show you who I'm meeting and who I'm talking to. So let's go back 3 years. This lovely gentleman from Kilkenny, Ireland, contacted us after he'd been watching our content for months and said, I want to send you a guitar. Boom. The James Martin guitar. Dreadnought cutaway. Look at the headstock on that thing. Such a beautiful instrument and a great builder. And I've been playing his instruments for as long as I've had this one. Then last year, I found, boom, the George Crackett OM. Mr. Crackett lives in Albany, New York. He is a single bench solo luthier. He builds some of the finest guitars that I've ever seen. And the guy's a monster. And he's a player. And he's a recording artist himself. And look at this guitar. This guitar is just phenomenal. I've used it on the road. I've used both of these on the road. George is actually building me another guitar right now. And so look, I mean, I found this guy because of YouTube, talking to the employees of a music store outside Albany, Parkway Music, who distribute his guitars. He only builds about 7 to 10 a year. Here you go. I've another guy that's making world-class guitars just in his own little shop, right? Guitars come and go. Anyhow, hats off to George Crackett. Love you, buddy. So, a few weeks ago, I was at a huge trade thing called the Fretboard Summit in Chicago. I went there with my good friends at Gallagher. We were showing off another J.P. Cormier signature model prototype. We had a new maple guitar. We had Dock guitar. We had there was a number of instruments we were showcasing there, and we had a great time, me and Dave Mathis. And I was wandering around the trade floor, and I came into this room where there were multiple displays, multiple builders. I passed by this large display of over a dozen guitars, and I was looking at them, and they were everything under the sun. Dreadnoughts, OMs, O's, double O's, slope shoulders, 12-string, ornate, not ornate. Just a huge cross-section of everything you could imagine, right? And I looked at the display and I thought, this must be a new, like, upstart company getting guitars built in Asia, because it's the only place I know of where they're able to do anything, right, and make it look great and sound great. And so I passed it by the first time, but then I started to get kind of curious, because the next time I walked by, there were sold signs on a lot of the guitars, and I went, okay, wait a minute now. What's going on here? And because you have to realize this guy is surrounded by Santa Cruz, Collings, Bourgeois, Gallagher, Husson Dalton, Thompson. They're all there. And nobody was buying those guitars, right? It did happen. Martin was there too. But here's this guy with the sold sign stacking up. So I walked over to the guy and I said, who builds these guitars? And he said, I do. They're my guitars. My name's David Flammang. And I just looked at him, because it was surprising to know that they were built here. And he went on to tell me that he was from Iowa, and he built guitars most of his life, and he built what the mood struck him. When the mood struck, whatever it was in his head is what he built. And I started to look around at these guitars, and man, they were flawless. They were unbelievably built. And I said, okay, what's your favorite one? And he pointed out a couple, and I played them, and they blew me away. And then I saw this guitar. His slope shoulder, J45, rosewood. I believe it's rosewood. Maybe mahogany. I'm not sure. I'll have to ask him. But it's stained and finished like an old J45 Gibson. Has his F on the top there. Oh, it's beautiful like that. Every guitar looks like that. And I picked it up, and this is what I heard. Man, when I played this guitar, I just couldn't get over it. This guitar sounds like every J45 Gibson wished it sounded. And beyond that, it has more depth and personality than the old J45s. Listen to the sustain. Oh, man, it's like a grand piano. And I started to talk to him, and he and his wife are some of the nicest people I've ever run into. As I've said before, and I believe this wholeheartedly, they're guys that can build guitars this good. They do it because they love the instrument. They're not doing it for money. They're not doing it for fame. They're doing it because they strive, right, to build a better guitar. And it's not for them. They want to put it in the hands of guitar players, artists, beginners, whatever the case may be. They want their instrument out in the world speaking, right? Listen, it's ringing while I'm talking. And so he told me, like, I've built guitars most of my life. Mark Knopfler has one of my guitars, Iris Dement, and he was telling me the people that had these instruments. I was like, what? How could I have not known about you? He said, well, we're quiet. We live in the country, and I do this. And I took a couple years off because I had too many orders. And this, he told me the whole kind of story. And a funny aside about this was that there were many other YouTube creators at this Fretboard Summit with me. John Chapman, the Chapman brothers were there from the acoustic shop. And we got a lot of great footage of me and John picking guitars together, and it was so much fun. And another one of my contemporaries, my buddy that I followed for a long time, Tony Policastro, who actually used a clip of me on his show once, which lent a lot of credibility to what I was doing, and I thanked him for it and gave him a big hug, and he's a nice guy. Well, Tony, he had his eyes on this guitar. And a matter of fact, I took it right out of his hands in the hallway, because after I had talked to David about wanting to show the world what he was doing, he was like, well, absolutely, and just packed the guitar up, pulled out a case, and I said, "Where's the guitar?" And he said, "Tony Policastro has it out in the hallway." And I walked up. Tony was on this bench playing it, and he was drooling and crying, and he wasn't crying, but he was drooling. And I said, "You're playing my guitar, buddy." He goes, "What?" And he cursed me up and down. It was funny. He's a good guy. Tony's hilarious. We had a great time together. But I literally, this instrument had captured everyone's ear. And this is not to say that the other guitars didn't, because they were all brilliant. This man is a master luthier. He builds guitars like I've never really seen before because of the diversity of guitars he builds. You know, you walk into a trade show and you see pretty well the same thing everywhere you go. You see a company, you know, focuses on dreadnoughts, OMs, maybe a couple of small bodies, maybe a parlor or whatever. Or you see the new age crazy body style, fan fret, fingerstyle, blah 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 blah, and it's like they're like art pieces that you'd never take on stage. You're scared to hurt the guitar, and sound ports and this and that and the other thing, but this and each table is populated by that one thing. You know what I mean? But this guy, if you looked through the collection of instruments he had there, everything was represented. Dreadnoughts, jumbos, slope shoulders, 12 strings, 6 strings, ornate-looking dreadnoughts that looked like Martins, old L body style, Gibson style, like just crazy stuff, and colors. There were sunbursts, there were naturals, there were colored top guitars. The man truly is a lot like George Crackett. Crackett does the same thing. Crackett builds what Crackett wants, right, at the time. Whatever is hitting his fancy is what he builds. David Flammang, the same way. And I think that I was extremely lucky to be able to get my hands on this instrument. And you just can't deny it. And by the way, I talked to David on the phone yesterday, and he told me that these are just bulk bench strings. They're not coated. They're not anything. This guitar was played a lot over the weekend, but yet it still retains. I can't wait to put coated new strings on this thing. But I wanted you to hear it the way I heard it and fell in love with it. So here we are, right? What a monstrous guitar, and a tremendous builder, and somebody that I just didn't know existed, and I'm sure most of you didn't know he existed either. This is why I do this show. So let's take a close look at this guitar, because man, it is built like a tank. Let's take a close look at the slope shoulder J45 style body, David Flammang. All right, so here we are, the David Flammang slope shoulder J45 style. We have ebony plate, a nice F. There's dust on her, been playing her. We have ebony tuning buttons, bone everything, or possibly tusk, but probably bone. This looks like a rosewood fretboard. Although ebony is hiding out in the disguise of rosewood sometimes, but this looks like rosewood because it would be, because it's a 45 body. Beautifully done, beautifully fretted. The neck, it just plays like a dream. Then we get down to the body and we see a beautiful tobacco finish Simple one-line purfling rosette. Beautiful kind of tiger stripe pick guard. And there's our sticker. Look at that. Cool. Green Iowa. Very nice rosewood, slim bridge, through bridge saddle. I would assume that those are tusk pegs. I don't think he's going to use plastic in this. But you can see the grain of the top here. It's very, very beautiful. It's very nice and tight. And then we get the plain Jane white binding, black, sort of a black finish, dark J45 type finish. On you can barely. It's so reflective in here. Good Lord. Anyhow, it's like a mirror. Is our heel cap. At the end, we have nothing but the button right there. Very nondescript plain Jane guitar, and I love it. It looks super antique. And there's our neck, also finished very darkly. Which is probably a mahogany neck. No volute really. But you can see where it's hand carved. You can really tell the profile is very nice. Premium tuners, Waverleys, work like a charm. I can't wait to string this thing and hear it with good coated strings. But there you go, boys. There's the J35, as he calls it, David Flammang, Green Iowa. What a tremendous instrument. It just sounds so good. And I'm going to throw a K&K in this thing. Possibly an SGI, but most likely a K&K, whatever I have on hand. I might even put something else in it that's going to be featured on the channel shortly. But there we go. There it is, boys. Feast your eyes and your ears. So there you go. The Flammang. I don't know what to tell you. All I know is that guys like this make the world go round. You know, when we talk about Robin Boucher or Hosen, these guys all started out the same way. Robin started out building a tiny number of guitars a year and quickly grew it into basically a factory shop where they can build 500 instruments a year now. Same thing with Dana Bourgeois or Collings or anybody, even Taylor, started out on his own and exploded into an international corporation, right? C.F. Christian Martin, same thing, started out by himself. Orville Gibson. The thing about that is that you're getting to see where a master luthier, you know, if he were to teach, if any of these builders were to teach people how to do what they do, and turn it into a bigger organization, and a bigger organization, you'd have 100 years from now, this would be just as prolific and everywhere you could look as Martin, Taylor, Gibson, Gretsch, Breedlove, whatever, right? This is where it starts. This is the foundation of all the great guitars that have ever been in the world, is a single builder who knows exactly what he's doing, has a recipe, and repeats it and improves it with each guitar. And when we get our hands on something like this from David Flammang or George Crackett or James Martin or any of the other people I'm going to meet, I know I am going to meet other builders. I love it. I love the fact that this platform has allowed me to come into the sphere of people like this. And David and his wife are just like Robin, just like George, just like Dave Mathis at Gallagher. They're such beautiful people. And I can say that across the board, all of the companies and small builders that I work with that come to me and say, you know, I'd like to be involved. They're all the same. They do it because they love the instrument. It's an infection. Chris Meikle at Yeri, Alvarez, St. Louis Music. The guy's the biggest guitar head you ever saw. You know what I mean? And same goes with Yamaha. The guys that run those divisions, where the FG9's coming out this year and all these things, they are the nicest people, and they're guitar players. And they love the instrument, as I do, and as you do, as evidenced by the sheer number of people that come on here and watch us every week. And I want to thank all of you, and a special thank you today to David Flammang for this instrument, for being such a great builder. And he's influencing people across the world, I'm sure, that he doesn't even know about. And because of some of the artists that he's put these guitars in their hands, you hear one of these things and see it, and you can't help but walk away shaking your head. Like that guitar was incredible. What was that? Now you know. Anyhow, a huge thank you to him and to you, and damn. The strings are getting old. Wow. Thanks, David. Thanks all to you. We'll see you next time on Guitar Stuff with John.